There's blood in the sky and it's falling on me. Feel it cascading as it washes me clean. The blood of many will be spilled by my hand. You will believe me when it covers the land.
All right, welcome back for another half-hour episode of Cities of Blood podcast.
30 minutes of blood talk.
I'm Phil DeSaro,
I'm Alexis Terevko.
and we're going to talk about some more murder today.
So first up on the docket, a skeleton discovered in basement in Long Island home. In 1961, this week, a gentleman named Michael Carroll, 57, and his two sons were basically excavating their basement for a home remodel, and they found a skeleton. After calling the police and the coroner, the body was discovered to have been Mr. Carroll's father, who went missing in 1961. Police say that the mother died in the 1990s, or the mother of Carroll, wife of the husband George, died in the 1990s. There's really no other details right now, but it's an odd thing that a guy who's literally been gone since, so his son had to have been born
Right around that time.
the time that the year he died.
Yeah.
So, and then had gone missing that entire time.
You know what I'm getting a visual of is, you ever live in a house with a basement?
Yes.
Have you ever seen the ones that have the half basement?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Is back east we had one of these in one of the homes I grew up with, and that you went downstairs and there was some basement, where we kept the laundry room, but then there was this wall, and then this other area that was just dirt, where the rest of the house was on.
Kind of like I remember the one that I lived in. It had like a lot of the beams
Yeah.
were like not in the ground, but they would be on those like brick pillars. Yeah, so that's my experience. Again, it was an old ranch house that was built in the 1880s out in Northern California that did have the basement.
Yeah.
Because it's where great grandmother kept like the canned fruits and all that stuff.
Yeah, the fruit cellar.
Yeah, and and the wine. Not that good Christian woman would have ever drank Jack Daniels at all. But yeah, so that's just really interesting story out of Long Island, New York, where.
So imagine living your entire life, and your father's buried in the basement, and you don't know.
And you think he's dead. I mean, you probably know he's dead.
Well, you don't know what his mother could have told him that he just dad.
He
went
ran
out for
away. Yeah, so you live your entire life. I put my sunglasses on, being funny. Not knowing that your father is buried 10 feet below you, 20 feet below you, and you probably have been told he ran away with the secretary, or.
It's anything, like I was saying, I've heard a comedian joke about this too, but a divorce in the 50s was. You pretty much said you were going out for a pack of cigarettes and you just didn't come back.
Yeah.
And you left everything and you started over somewhere else and got a new family and the whole bit. And that was the 50s divorce. And so I can imagine the mother probably telling him something like that.
Right.
He just never came home, son. Or,
Yeah.
That's not how New Jersey sounds. But
I this came out about 4 days ago. I tried to look up to see if there was any update. I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
So I'm going to wait like maybe a month to see if maybe there's like a news update.
Well, 57 years, so that the mother or the wife of this body, she's dead. She's got.
Yeah, no. Well, she said it says right here she passed away. It just is in the 90s.
In the 90s.
So it probably was one of those things. Everyone was freaking out. There. When'd your mom die? I don't know. Sometime in 1990s.
Yeah.
And the cops didn't go. But it's just a weird way to start a day if you're, hey, let's get down early and.
Well, I've heard of skeletons in the closet. There's skeletons in the basement.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things too where they'll probably never ever find out what happened unless there is some note.
I wonder how the guy's feeling though now, knowing that. One, it's weird enough. You're with your two sons and you're working on the old house, and all of a sudden you dig up a body, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you find out that's dad.
Yeah.
That's gotta. I imagine he's going through some things mentally right now, I would think.
Oh, I mean, the fact that, your mother's been gone for 20 plus years, but it's like everything she ever said to me was a lie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I would take it.
Absolutely. Well, or, go another level. Mama was a killer.
right?
You know, so that I'm not saying that. Who knows what the circumstances were? This could have been one of the situations where he was the '50s alcoholic husband beating the hell out of the wife, and
he could have deserved
maybe it was a
you know?
self-defense
Right.
thing, and she just thought that she'd go to jail, so she buried him in the basement. Who knows what the scenario is? But just for from the guy's point of view, the son anyway, digging your father up out of the family basement.
Yeah. That's,
Yeah,
and he's been there the entire time.
your whole life.
Yeah, your entire life he's been there. That's the crazy part.
They didn't move. That would have been something crazy if he had actually moved to some other location and somebody else was doing the basement.
Exactly.
You know,
Whole different story if you found a body of someone you didn't. I mean, technically he didn't know his
former
father.
owner or something like that. Yeah.
The owner that went missing and the house was sold by the bank type deal. But that's just that right there is almost what this podcast is about.
It's funny out here in Sacramento and in the West period, bodies do turn up, old bodies, from the 1800s sometimes, because they just buried them anywhere out here back in the day. So
right.
I had a friend who lived off of American River, I think, and they were digging through, found bones in the backyard, and called the police, and they sent out I think anthropologists, somebody, and they determined that it was from like the 1800s, and so they removed them, and I don't know what the rest of the whole story was, but it wasn't a murder that like happened yesterday or even 30 years ago. Sometimes these things are in the ground for hundreds of years out here and preserved.
And that was like it was a couple years back that I want to say was in that like Auburn, Newcastle area up there east of us.
Yeah.
They had found a small gravesite, like graveyard, that was still had like the old West picket fence that had like the weeds had grown over the top of it and stuff
just
like that.
in the movies.
And it was just this, it was like one of those things where it was in dense forest, and the fact that nobody had probably seen it for 150 years was a surprise.
A small family plot on some family farm that people forgot was even
I want
there.
to say it was like there was like 12 people or something buried there.
Big family.
Yeah, or
Small
maybe
town.
or small town, or could have been, smallpox got people, something like that.
Down in Virginia, when I was in the Marine Corps, I was stationed there, and I remember one Halloween going out to some farm with a girl and some friends, and they tried to scare everybody by hiding in these old graves of this old family plot and like jumping out, and kind of saw it coming. It didn't really work out too well, but it was all over the South when you could see these old homes that are like rotting, off in the field, and those were once farmhouses for a large farm, and most of them had small family cemeteries in it. And so, the people who settled this area were all from back east. They did the same thing. They carried it out here. I'm not sure what year the Sacramento cemetery, the real old one downtown, started, but it's got some really old graves. Back when, the city actually, created a real city cemetery.
I want to say it was probably like 1865.
I would think it would have been. I would think that might have been even earlier, because you figure Sutter got here in the 1830s. And then the gold rush was 1848 is when the announcement happened that 49ers is
probably is earlier.
I'd say right about
because I know I've gone out there in the past and seen and been like, oh wow, that guy's been here for 130 years or whatever. And so it's like, and two, when you talk about like the graves in the South, I know I was in rural Georgia a decade and a half ago or whatever it was, 15 years ago, and my friends still to this day live on a plantation, and it's the same plantation that their family has had since they've been in Georgia. But it's not the same house. It's a different house. But the old house is still up, and it's actually they've done the thing where they've renovated it and it looks like it's in
period correct.
Very period correct, and it's almost like a historical landmark. And I was actually shown the slave graveyard that they had kept. And when I asked why, they said, well, it might have been a fucked up family 200 years ago, but we're not messing with anybody's grave sites, type deal. And it was like, okay. That was almost like an emotional thing, too, when you see that.
Well, I watched. It's funny you bring that up. I watched a documentary, and I wish I could remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it was about an old home like you're talking about on a plantation that they were actually moving to some other area because they were selling off this plot of land because it had ended up, by this time a highway had come up near it, and so they were moving it to preserve the house. And same thing, there was a slave graveyard, and then there was the family graveyard, and there were all these stories that went back and forth. But oftentimes, back in that time, the master or whatever, there was some intermingling between the servants and the master, and so some of these people that showed up when this house was being moved were actually like descendants not only of the slaves, but they were descendants of the family. It was pretty fascinating type stuff there. But back onto the murders type stuff that's been going on here. I know the past couple of days here, or past week or so, there's been a lot of crazy shit happening with shootings all over the place. And I think in the last podcast, or maybe 2 podcasts ago, we were talking about how the guys who go on these shooting sprees are the same demographic, the same group of people, which is basically our age group, the middle-aged, Caucasians, that are going out on shooting sprees, and they're killing themselves.
Yeah.
And we talked about that being maybe the loss of the change in the economy, definitely, but I guess the change in culture too, to where you used to be able to support your family on one job,
right?
And now it's just
now you both have to work.
You both have to work,
and sometimes if you've got a teenage kid, they've got to work.
Yeah.
And and speaking of shootings, we just had one last night in Tallahassee, Florida.
Yeah.
6 people were shot, 5 were killed.
This was at the yoga studio.
A yoga studio in Tallahassee.
This makes me wonder why a yoga studio? Why that?
And the weird caveat to this is he shot 6 people.
Yeah.
And he pistol whipped 1, and then he killed himself, which, in the end, that's good for the taxpayers. We don't have to pay for him to be in prison. And again, this is literally happened less than 15 hours ago.
I got to go out on a limb here. Was the guy a Trump supporter?
I
don't mean to laugh. Especially not with innocent people murdered like this, but I have to suspect that somebody would only target a yoga studio because of who they perceive to be in those yoga studios, and that would be, Democrats maybe, or yippies.
There's our. I'm just looking up a picture of the gentleman.
Yeah. Haas.
Yeah. It says gunman in Tallahassee yoga studio shooting had a history of arrest for grabbing women. Boy, he doesn't fit what we pictured at all, does it? I don't know if you could see that or not, but
yeah, we'll throw a picture up on the edit. But so this guy's got a history of grabbing women.
So actually,
was it all women in the yoga studio?
Honestly, I know. Okay, so the first report I'm reading is wrong.
Have I read this wrong?
The gunman who shot and killed only 2 people and wounded 5 others. Okay. So the reports I read this morning, to the report I'm reading now, have changed because it was 5 people died. Yeah. Now it's just 2 people died. So maybe, I don't know.
This thing. Maybe it's not.
He had arrests in 2012. This is a woman thing.
This is a woman thing. Okay.
I mean, literally grabbing 2 buttocks of women, 2 separate women, on the campus of Florida State University. He was arrested in 2016 for battery charges for slapping and grabbing another woman's rear end in a swimming pool.
Now, I wonder if somebody he was interested in, or an ex-girlfriend, was in that yoga class.
I'm trying to see if it says anything. Man, this guy.
Because he sounds like the typical jilted,
Police were called. I guess this is FSU. The FSU Police Department was called on campus to one of their dining halls in 2012. Again, inappropriate touching of 2 women. So this is definitely a
woman thing. He's a lady killer.
Yeah, and it's not. Again, it's not. There's probably so. Again, we're 15 or 16 hours out from this happening.
So there's not a lot of.
There's not going to be a
information
ton
on
of
this yet.
information, but it's again that was.
I wonder if if he had a relationship with one of the victims.
Well, he killed. I mean, and he killed the two I do know. He killed Dr. Nancy Van Vessem, who was 61, and Amora Binkley, who was 21, and he was 40. So he killed equally 21 years difference in age, or 19 to 21 years difference in age.
Just terrible.
So either he had a relationship with a doctor who was 61 or the woman who was 21, or he just killed him.
Else in there.
That I mean, and I would think whoever he pistol whipped would have been the one that.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what the details are.
Something's wrong with the old noggin right there.
Well, it just doesn't sound like your typical crime. If he was targeting a group of people who he served to be affluent,
yeah,
and he had just like lost his job or was on the bottom of the rung or a ardent Trump supporter or some crazy shit like that.
And again, I think it's one of those things too where it's so new, and this happened at night, and
yeah, we're probably gonna have to wait until this develops another week or two.
12 hour. Well, we'll probably. I would say by Monday morning we'll probably have more details, if there's not another shooting by then.
That's the other thing is what the hell is with these shootings?
Right.
The recent rash of shootings. Now, I hate to say this in this country because we have to define like what period of time we're talking about because it seems like there's consistently been a few shootings a year for the past 20 years now. I
feel like it's almost in the last, I don't know, I don't want to say 2 years because everyone's going to presume I'm talking about
honestly
presidency. I want to say probably for the last 7 or 8 years, I feel like there's some sort of shooting
once a week,
every couple days.
Yeah,
I mean, and I think we talked about it in the last podcast. The dad who had the McDonald's shooting,
McDonald's shootout.
This was again we opened it last show was different. A guy came in to shoot, and he defended basically the McDonald's.
Yeah,
different scenario, but it's still a shooting. And then
still shootings. The mass shootings, like the synagogue shooting, unfortunately, and there was this yoga shooting.
Was the synagogue was in Pittsburgh?
Yes, it was Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh, right? And that's just. I'll never understand the shootings. I don't understand the people.
You have to get inside a racist's head and the brainwashing. Ultimately, it comes down to blaming other people for your problems.
Right.
I mean, you have to be able to blame somebody why your life is going wrong, why things aren't working out for you. And so if we can present a villain for you to hate, then that's great.
And I think my point, though, is more of never, I mean, I guess I grew up a tad bit religious and did go to a school, the religious school and stuff like that. But for me, it was always, no matter what, I don't care what religion you are.
Yeah.
As long as you're not one of these made-up, phony religion.
No Moonies for you?
Yeah. Church or a synagogue or a mosque or whatever you want to, your version of a church
religious
was
freedom.
like the safe place.
Yeah.
You went there to be safe.
Sanctuary.
It was a sanctuary, and I mean, I have a TV movie thing. Like in Highlander, you could never kill anyone in a church. By the way, this is Phil and I'll add this up on this since we're talking about it. Yeah. I found this morning. It's a list of the terrorists in America. Yeah,
we've got Timothy McVeigh here, Dylan McDaniels, I think. I can't think of his last name.
I don't. Again, we'll put this up in the video.
Absolutely.
At this point of what we're talking about, but it's
disturbing.
It's a
that there are that many. That doesn't go back further than Columbine, because a lot of people don't remember. But we've had school shootings since the 1970s.
Well, I mean, and even with churches, I mean, you think about the Deep South in the 1960s and 50s.
Oh, absolutely.
They were pure,
targeted.
But still. But again, I'll never understand that. For me, a church is always a safe place, and for them to even shoot up a church or a synagogue, again, I'm using church as a vast word, a wide variety.
You have to be, and it's. I know you can't comprehend their hatred or even
Yeah.
understand where it comes from, but I guess the thing that's confusing is that a lot of people might think the KKK are Christian. It's not. That whole
They say they're Christian.
no, they believe in a different type of Christianity where they are actually gods themselves. It's a weird type of thing.
Well, that's why they call them, was it the Grand Holy Wizard or
Grand
something?
Holy Wizard,
Or some
God
shit.
soldiers, all that type of shit. But it's definitely not the do unto others as you'd have done to you Christianity that most of us
So
are aware of.
and to kind of take that forward, you've been here in the Sacramento area for almost 21 years now.
Yeah, just about.
So I never saw it because I think I grew up in a community that was so populated with different people in Rancho Cordova
Yeah.
that stuff like that didn't happen. But I always heard that there was like KKK meetings out by the river.
I've heard that there were KKK meetings here in North Sacramento, and I heard out by Dyre Lane. Did you hear that?
No, no,
Dyre Lane?
Dyre Lane. But I think Dyre Lane is a subject in all of its own.
It
Because
is,
it
and
feels
it-
like I had a friend who
Yeah.
posted something the other day
Yeah.
about, have you ever heard this about Dyre Lane?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, yeah, everyone knows that. So I feel like Dyre Lane gets every rumor.
The reason why I brought that up, though, is that,
'Cause
that one of the few confirmed rumors. Now, I did a lot of research on Dyre Lane a few years back, and let me tell you, there's not a lot there. The one thing I did find there was a quote-unquote race riot that happened between a group of high school kids in like the 80s there. And that's the type of shit that, because first off, this is not, I don't think it's that close to any high schools. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's pretty far. As far as Sacramento sits, it's like out.
You know,
you're
there are
almost
two
Alberta.
high schools that are kind of, I would say, the same distance apart
Are they?
from Dyre Lane.
So they chose
that
to
would meet in the middle, probably, because I want to say it would be, and if I'm getting the high schools wrong,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I want to say it's
This also must have been a
Rio Linda
time.
High and Center High,
Yeah.
because I think Center High is the one off Watt Avenue, and Rio Linda High is off. I don't know if it's off Rio Linda
I
Boulevard.
heard they
but-
had clan meetings there. I'd also heard our friend Mina Perez.
Yeah.
You know Mina. She's a wonderful person, and she had told me a story. I think I may even have it on film about the person who lived next door to her for a long period of time growing up or whatever was like the head of like a KKK chapter president or something to that effect.
Oh, shit.
And he was, you know, when he was dying of cancer, he went over there and almost did some type of weird racist apology to her, saying, you know, I never had any problems with you, type, you know.
Right.
It's a very weird, awkward kind of thing when you have somebody who's like an admitted racist who then wants to, you know, but I like you.
Right. And I think, too, to go back to Dyre Lane, is Dyre Lane gets the like, I mean, I've heard the thing about the KKK,
Yeah.
black men being hung from that big tree.
I heard about a police officer being killed out there. I don't know if that's true or not.
That one, and then there's the one where the
Whole family was butchered.
the one where the guy breaks down and he's walking down Dyre Lane with his back to Watt Avenue, and a car comes at him with lights, and he thinks he's gonna get hit,
Yeah.
and he does this, and then he realizes the car drove through him.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's got murder, ghosts,
Yeah.
and honestly, if I sat here for 20 minutes,
Yeah.
I could probably come up with all the things I heard about Dyre Lane, and half of them I want to go, I believe that. Half of them I want to go, that's bullshit.
I've been out there at night, and the only thing I saw was somebody hung a mannequin head off of one of the fences, because that's the other thing.
Right,
Is
yeah.
If you do venture out there, you're not going to be able to stop anywhere. Everything is fenced. Like, everything is fenced on both sides of this little narrow road, and then around the bend, and these are people's yards. So it's not like you're going to, you know, oh, let's get out and hang around here.
Yeah.
Even if it does look like a desolate road, people live there.
And it's not that it's not scary, but it's dark as shit.
It is dark. There's
no
lights on that road.
So even with your headlights on,
Yeah.
it's still dark.
There's no lights on that
And-
part of Watt Avenue. I
And
think.
we get fog. We get pretty good fog in the winter. If you're out there during the fog,
Yeah.
you can't see shit. I've been out there at night, I know.
Yeah.
You know, I've been out there during the day and you can't tell. Holy. my God.
Yeah.
You know, so it's one of those things where Dyre Lane is, I'm this on Dyre Lane
Yeah.
because,
I can't-
again, I believe some of it.
I can't
Some of it I
believe-
go, I could see a version of that happening. And the other rest of it, I just go, nah, it's not.
Historically speaking, the only thing I found was I believe the guy may have been a sheriff at one point in time. You know, the old son, one of the Dyre family. You know, something to that effect. But really, historically speaking, I found like nothing. I haven't scoured the Union archives yet, but you would think somebody would come up with something concrete by now. Everything I put in that one, that script that I wrote, was a complete fabrication. It took the little bits that I had heard, and then I made up a ton of other shit that wasn't true at all. So,
Typical Hollywood writer.
hey, you know,
What do you call it?
You gotta make it
It's
better.
Based on a true story.
based on a true story.
So-
elaborate.
Well, Phil, I think that's this episode.
Is that 30 minutes? Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun talking to your friends.
Right? Or a
Yes.
friend. And the dogs, because we did chase them off a little bit, but
Yeah.
we'll edit that out. You probably even know what we're talking about.
No.
Well, folks, I'm Alexis Drevko.
And I'm Phil Lucero.
And then remember, Cities of Blood on Facebook. Give us the old thumbs up. And at Cities Blood on Twitter,
Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube.
on YouTube. And we'll see you next week.
Absolutely.
Feel it cascading as it washes me clean. The blood of many will be spilled by my hand.